I'm slowing myself down at the end of my day. So we're here because I really care about impact. Hopefully you know that if you've read my writings. I really care about impact. It's what drives me. If you cut me through, I think it'd say the word impact somewhere. It's my pursuit. I pursue it. I never feel I have enough of it. I get excited about it. And so this is what I promised at the start, right? I said, you're an entrepreneur or a CEO with a track record of success. You're not prepared to coast. Instead, you want to make a positive impact at scale, change the world in a far more significant way, and enjoy the journey. So I promised that I'd share insights from my work with some of the world's most inspiring leaders and offer practical approaches to shift your trajectory, multiply your impact, and have lots of fun along the way in the next 50 minutes, right? So obviously that's going to be easy to change the world in 50 minutes. Let's do it. First question, and again, perhaps put it in the chat. We'll hopefully we'll kind of open up the mics and do things a bit later on, I think, but I want to just get it all thinking. And the idea of thinking and then writing helps us kind of consolidate our thoughts, right? And really condense it to a point. Why is this important for you? Why are you here, right? Why is this idea of being a force for good, exponential strategies, vision-driven CEOs? Like, why are you here? Why is this an important question for you? What do you want? Not perhaps from this, or perhaps broader. Like, well, what's your longing? Put something in the chat. Yeah, Chris, thank you. Yeah, you want to make a difference. You have impact as a leader. Great. Yeah, vision for the team to rally around. Yeah, I've been realizing often one of the biggest things that my clients face is that they're super smart, they're visionary, they're clever, they're charismatic, they're all these things. And yet somehow they can almost just struggle to bring the organization with them at the speed that they want to go, right? And there's always that tension. Am I communicating? Am I bringing it? What's going on? And that's hopefully something we're going to kind of cover today. Yeah, to be efficient. Yeah, I coined the term strategic laziness. I think I've always pursued strategic laziness, you know, how to have the biggest impact whilst not having to be the one doing the most hours, right? I think it's important. Okay. So let me start with the first point. Let me just share a slide. I don't have many slides because I'd rather talk to you, but and Serge, you'll know this one from a previous conversation, but let's do it. So the first point I want to make around this idea of exponential strategies is, generally speaking, most of us, we can't 10x our resources, but we can 10x our personal impact. Okay, you can't 10x your resources, but you can 10x your personal impact. So, as I said, a classic problem statement is you've got this big vision, people aren't following necessarily, or you're not moving fast enough, or you feel you're getting dispersed. Perhaps you're spending too much time rolling up your sleeves and getting into the weeds, doing things your team should be doing. Or perhaps you feel you've delegated to your team, but you're not seeing the progress that you'd have expected at this time. And often when I ask people, well, how can you make things go faster? They often say, well, if I just had a better team, if I had more engaged team, if I had better, clearer leadership from my shareholder, or if I had a bigger budget, then we could use other things. But of course, those are always outcomes. So the one thing that's within our power is our personal impact. So here are 3 curves. I'm fascinated by these curves. So there is what I call a kind of fairly slow incremental approach, right? Then there's kind of a slightly faster one. That's often the path of the high achiever, we'll find out. It's faster, but it's still fundamentally incremental. And then there's this kind of transformational exponential, it's not quite an exponential curve, but this kind of transformational leap forward, this quantum leap. And I'm always curious about how do we get onto these different curves? And this is the framework which I find really, really helpful, which is to think about what happens. So on the red curve, generally what we're doing is we're going under the principle of have, do, be. In other words, if I had something more, then I could do the things I really want to do, which would allow me to be happy, successful, impactful, whatever I want to be. So if I just had, if I had a better team, then finally I could let go of all the stuff I'm currently doing and do the more strategic stuff, which would allow me to, grow my business, bring in big clients, be a leader on the world stage, whatever it is, be happy, whatever, retire early, whatever you want. Have, do, be. The problem is that it means we're always waiting for the thing we need to have, and the thing we need to have doesn't come along quick enough. And so we're waiting to do the things we want to do because we haven't got the things we need. So it's really slow. And there's a bit of victim mentality in that. We might not see it, but if I had more time, then I could be strategic, So we're waiting for time to magically appear on our plate. And it really holds us back. The second one is probably one that many of us might know. It's the higher achiever. It's the high achiever path. It's do, have, be. If I just do more, I focus more, I drive more, work harder, then I'm going to be able to have the results faster, just by my sheer willpower and skills, drive it forward. And then I'm going to have what I need, and I'm going to be happy, successful. But again, we rapidly hit the number of hours in the day. Right? We can't do much more. We hit the limit of complexity. And actually, the doing doesn't always give us what we really wanted to have anyway. And what we wanted to have doesn't always make us be what we wanted to be, happy, successful, satisfied, whatever. And so that can also be a bit of a grind. But a lot of high performers find themselves on that. They can do so much. I know that one. But in my life and life of my clients, what I find is the game-changing question is be, do, have. You see, the way we operate, our way of doing, comes from our being. It comes from our way of being. I'll explain that in a minute. And obviously what we do generates the results that we get. So I'll give you an example. A client of mine, realized that they were actually showing up. They were doing lots of stuff, but they were basically anxious, frustrated. That was their kind of way of being, right? So they were showing up every day kind of as the anxious and frustrated and irritable leader. They didn't mean to. They'd have kind of fallen into it. And they were doing the stuff they needed to do. But when they realized the impact, the quality of every interaction had gone down, then we started to change it. But what would happen if they showed up fun and inspired? What would happen if they turned up to enjoy the ride? What happened if they became on a mission that was so important that people felt it in them? And so just that shift from being to doing, or a new way of being, because that's the thing we can change, right? The thing we can most easily change is our way of being. We can become somebody with greater vision, with greater creativity, with more empathy, with more braver, courageous. We can put our attention on different things. And those are the things that are going to generate the results. So here's the question for you to start with on this. Imagine that you are doing all the things that you dream about doing. Perhaps the reason you're on this call. Think about this incredible future where you are having an exponential impact, whatever that means for you. That you're having 10 times more impact, that you're speaking with stakeholders that you couldn't even imagine getting into a room with them right now, that you're moving your team forward, you've won their hearts and minds, they're completely engaged in a way they've never been before, whatever it is for you. What would be the difference in you? Who would you have to be to create that kind of result? I'm going to suggest, again, have a think. Well, what would be one shift that would make all the difference for you? And perhaps put it in the chat. If anyone has any questions as well, feel free to ask at this point. Hey, Serge, I don't know whether I can pick on you. I know you mentioned to me recently that you've been thinking about this. You said this had an impact on you, thinking about this. It might be helpful for people if you could share, just come off mute if that was okay, and just share just for few seconds how this landed for you.
Thank you, Richard. Well, very briefly, we have had these conversations by the beginning of the summer, where I was kind of struggling to do things, to have more resources and recruit people. And at the end of the day, after years, I was expecting to become a leader in the field we are working in. And based on the conversation that we have had and the summer, the sun, thanks for the sun and the rest, I took the decision to say, okay, this is who we are. And I had a quick chat with investors and I said, okay, this is who we are. So please give us, this is what we will do, and give us the resources. And it changed totally the way to work. And so now I'm running because this has been quite a success, and in a very short time. So it may look like a detail, but it's not a detail at all. It's a very simple way of changing the way I was thinking about the future on my position, the position of my company, really shifted our plan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Serge. Hey, I'm going to just ask Chris. Chris, you put in the chat that you can't come in with an answer. So let's play. Come off mute. We'll talk. You're able to come off mute. Yeah, you said
I found it.
Okay, so this is a question most people haven't thought of in quite this way. People need to be different. But let me ask you this question. So, what would be an amazing outcome? Like in your head, what would that shift in impact be for you? Oh, sorry, I've got you. You're in a public space.
Yeah, there are meeting rooms. Yeah, I mean, I'm in a slightly different position to a lot of the people here, I think, because I'm currently an individual contributor in my company, but I'll be moving up to a leadership role soon. And there's likely to be a lot of expansion next year. And I think we're behind the curve in terms of security, which is what I do, and compliance, and just basically gearing up what was a sort of minimum viable product into something that's going to go global. I do think it is, for me, it's proactivity. I think some people said in the chat, actually believing that they have a right to be in the room. And I'm going to need to step up in terms of the people that I speak to, people who are higher up.
Yeah, so because it's the doing, and then the question is, well, who would be the person who was having those amazing conversations with people way higher up, really influencing them, right? So we often go to what skills I need to build. No, but like what's the energy that they would bring? How would they show up differently? So let's imagine, Chris, that you didn't get that, whatever, so somebody else came into that role, a leadership role. So perhaps you win the lottery, you on a Caribbean island sipping a pina colada, and then you meet an old colleague of yours who's perhaps in that team, and they say, you know what, Chris, you left, this new person came in, they absolutely nailed it. Like all the things we were talking about, like they couldn't believe it. They were like talking to these people, making these things happen. The way we think about things have changed, whatever it is, all the goals, all the things we said, they absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
But who was that person? Like, what would that person have that was responsible for that kind of success? I don't mean like the experience and the skills and the CV, but what was it about them?
Yeah, this is a fundamental and really interesting question, isn't it? Because I've always, and I probably like a lot of high achievers, always focused on the skills, and they are very, very important. But who would that person be, rather than what would they have and what would they do? I think they would have to embody the mission, right? We need to expand our products around electric vehicles because the planet is heating up. and it's certainly a rocky road, right?
Well, Chris, let's just stick with you just for the sake of time, right? On this question, on the question of embodying the mission, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I think that's like, I think let me give you an example, just picking up on that. So my own personal story over the last few years of my business. When I started my business, I was like, you know what people will probably want from me, what my clients is to be smart, because I got my Oxford degree and I've got my, all the rest of it, right? And that's what I've did in consulting and in industry and everything else. That's really what they want. So I showed up in that way. Okay, I'll show up as the strategist. That was the label kind of on my head, right? That was kind of, and we all have a label in our workplace, right? Like we have a job title, but then we have like, I'm the reliable analyst, or I'm the visionary leader, or I'm the whatever. Okay, but those end up being the boxes to limit us. They're not tools in the toolbox. So I'm always saying to people, like, take the thing that you know how to do and how you show up, make that a tool, and think of a broader identity. So for me, I can always dip into my intellectual smarts whenever I need them, but that shouldn't be my identity. So I started thinking, well, what else do I need to be? I need to be funny, like bring my personality, stick my Freddie Mercury poster up, right? Bring some of who I am, so I'm not just some other boring consultant like everybody else. And so I started to bring that into who I was and into my work, and clients liked it, right? And it created a deeper connection. Then I realized, that's not enough, being smart and funny. It's like, I am on a mission, and I got clear, right? My sister's mentally handicapped. I had this high-flying life. I really believe that if we have the resources, the ability to make a difference, then we shouldn't just sit in our comfort zone. We should go and change the world in our own way. So I'm on a mission. I'm serious about it, right? So then I became, and that's going to inspires my clients. And I also see it in them when they're playing small, when they're not pushing the boundaries, right? And so that way of being starts to show up. It's not changing necessarily the activities that I'm doing. I'm still having client calls and, all the rest of running a business, but it's who I'm being has changed. And then the last one was about a year ago. I realized, do clients actually know I care about them? I do care, but do I show that? So I started hugging my clients and, like just generally saying, I think you're a mate, do you know, I got your back. I really care about you. You're in a lonely, isolated place. I want you to know. I think it's amazing what you're up to. So to share that. So I started to be more caring and more loving, effectively. And that
I agree. I mean,
it's a good example to show, but it comes from that place of being grounded.
It does. It comes from conviction, and I think not everybody is there, and for those who are there, who aren't there, it can be quite a big project.
So let me move on just for the sake of time. Thanks, Chris, for playing with me a little bit there. I wanted just to share a few ideas. So I think conviction is a great word, or I call it groundedness as well. Really knowing and getting to that place. So here are a few kind of strategies, and then I want to sum it up with a particular way of looking at it. So we've talked about to be, like how do we maximize that personal impact? Because when we do that, that's the only lever we have, right? Fundamentally, it's how we use our time, our energy, our skills to make a difference. So here are a few principles. The first principle I want to share is move yourself and then move others. Right? You can't move others until you moved yourself. So one of my clients, CEO of a multinational company, several billion-dollar company, was working with him. And we'd done a lot of work when he onboarded as CEO, getting him in the role, helping him have powerful conversations, leading his transformation program. But he kind of got up that learning curve. And then we're having a conversation around purpose. And it really started to ignite him. And he was like, perhaps I'm like the CEO of a billion-dollar company for a reason at this moment. Perhaps I could be doing something with this, right? Rather than just taking home the big paycheck. So he went away and he came back a couple of months later, completely on fire around sustainability. He's like, I've really done a lot of reading. This is so serious. I'm fully on board. My family, we're going net zero. I'm going to take my business net zero, and I want my industry to go net. I'm going to work outside the boundaries with customers, with partners. He was really on fire. He didn't need to do it. It wasn't just like a ticking the box exercise. People could feel it when he talked about it because he connected to that sense of mission. another client of mine was working with, and the conclusion of the conversation just the other day was, oh my word, my team, they need to see my heart again. Because we were talking about his own vision, and he was actually starting to share his vision for what he wanted to do. We'd really worked on that together. And I was like, have you shared this with your team? Do they know what really makes you tick? The way that you want to change the world? And he was like, oh, no, I probably, he said, I stopped talking about that probably 5-10 years ago, because like the business, when we started the business, they all followed me, they were all in. And then over time, it's just become a bit about the numbers. And yeah, and actually I've got clearer now than I ever have, through the coaching about my mission. I suddenly realized, oh yeah, that would be amazing if they actually saw my heart again, saw the mission that I'm on. So move yourself and then move others. So my question, and again, we do this in Rivendell, my CEO group. We got everybody to really think about this. We did some exercises. We want to stand up and declare in front of everybody. It was really powerful. Like, I'm the future of this. This is the future that I'm committing to. This is the kind of difference I want to make. And some of my clients, they've like moved on since they left their current company, but their mission stays. One client literally told us, well, he exited his company. He's now doing a PhD and starting a new company because of that mission that he's still on. The company's changed, but his mission's the same. So what moves you to your core is my question. What moves you to your core? What are you prepared to sacrifice for? Like when I got really clear about impact, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop coaching clients one-to-one who just want to get promoted. It's fine. And I've got other programs that can help people with those kind of issues. But my one-to-one clients, like, that's it. They're going to want to make a difference in the world. They're going to deal with the exec challenges at the same time, the pressures of business and getting the results they need to get, sure. And they want an eye on impact. And I made that commitment. I talk about it now, because I'm prepared to like take a hit perhaps in the short term as I pivot my business into those areas. So what moves you to your core? Second thought, so move yourself, then move others. The second one is optimize for creativity and not productivity. Optimize for exponential growth, optimize for creativity, not productivity. Productivity, we hit that ceiling of complexity. We hit the number of hours in a day. It's through creativity that we break through the limits. I spent a day with one of my clients, a very successful entrepreneur, and by about 3 p.m. we had an aha. It was an amazing moment because we had a project, successful business. He wanted to build a tech, like a new version of that business, like a bigger scale using a tech platform. And he figured out a plan that was going to take him probably 5 to 8 years to do, building a team from scratch and et cetera, right? And building a long thing. We spent some time creatively thinking about who he was, what his gifts were, what he wasn't thinking about. And suddenly he realized the way it always created impact was through making deals and through key relationships. And it sounds simple, but it was a key insight. He suddenly went, oh my word, I could do this business in a couple of years just because I know some people and we could do some deals and I could get some money in and we could put this thing together. It could probably exist in a couple of years. It suddenly went from this almost grueling, almost hard to imagine entrepreneurial slog with him doing things he doesn't really love doing, like managing a team and, starting from scratch and everything, to something that felt fun and easy for him in his genius zone. So optimize for creativity and not productivity. I want to give you 3 things that you can track every day. The first is inspiration. Am I feeling inspired about my number 1 goal right now, my number 1 project? On a scale of 1 to 5, just, am I inspired? If you're not inspired by it, like, sit in a chair until you're inspired, or get up and do whatever inspires you, or change the project you're working on. This is like a lead indicator. Because if you're not inspired, we're just going to just get on and plow through our emails and everything else. Second one is engagement. Like, am I engaged? Like, am I actually got time on in my agenda today, my diary today, to actually progress my number one kind of breakthrough project, the thing that I really want to create? Or am I just pushing that down to tomorrow because I've got urgent stuff? So inspiration, engagement. And the next one is enjoyment. It's a crazy thing. I'm starting to realize that the more fun I have, the more successful I can become. I see it in my clients, like, that sounds like almost wrong. Shouldn't it just be hard and grim? But no. But if we have fun, again, that's what we play. When we play, we become creative. When we have fun, we magnetize people more to us than when we're just kind of like fear-based, need-based. So I just put it to you, if you actually literally draw 3 columns in your planner or wherever you do it, inspiration, engagement, and fun, and you look at that each morning and just think, what's my intention for that today? Well, how am I feeling about that? How am I going to make this fun? Where am I going to engage? How am I going to inspire myself? I think you'll find things start to shift because your being starts to shift because you're showing up as somebody who's engaged, inspired, and enjoying themselves. A number of times I start my first conversation with clients and it's like, I start to find that for all their success, the inner reality is frustration and self-doubt and beating themselves up about stuff and anxiety. All that stuff is really going on, even the most successful people. So optimize for creativity, not productivity. Second point. Third point is be more focused and less focused. Be more focused and less focused. We're not focused enough and we're too focused. So one of my clients, we had a conversation. We realized that he came to the aha that sitting by the pool leads to breakthroughs. He had 2 key meetings. One he didn't do great at, and one he did amazingly at. One was an investor meeting where he didn't really deliver it with the conviction that was necessary, and it was fell a bit flat. The other one, he was on holiday. He was sitting by the pool, having a great day, had to go and do his call. He went back an hour early, just to kind of psych himself up for the call. He closed the biggest deal his company ever had with a major, global brand name. That client, he's an Olympic gold medalist in his previous life, Olympic medalist in his previous life. And he said, yeah, like I suddenly realized that's what I did then. I had these intense periods when I was fully on and I had this preparation, and then I had time when I was down. And so he's structured his whole day around that now. He's got his key periods when he's going to be fully on, and the rest of it, he's got time when he's like nothing. And then he's got some low energy stuff to do the emails and whatever has to be done. But what we realized was, what I asked him, and you can ask yourself the same question, is what are the 3 things, what are the 3 biggest breakthroughs you've had this year? What are the 3 best results that you've had? Perhaps just drop them down for a second. What are the 3 results that are the most significant that you've had in the last year? Give me a second to think of those. You can write them down privately if you want, or put them in the chat either, but just write them down somewhere. And then for each of those, just think about and write down, what was my unique contribution to that made those things happen? What was my essential ingredient? So just wondering if anybody's, no, I'm doing it a little bit quick here. Just wondering if anybody's got any insights just from doing that, if they can see a common theme, or whether you're seeing very different themes. Happy to talk to anybody if you want to come off mute. Let's make it real. Yeah, Phil.
For me, what's coming up is connecting different things together. So sometimes it can be people, but often it's different bits of knowledge and bringing that together in an original or different way.
Yeah. And would you kind of say that's something that that's always been there in all those key successes?
Yeah, it's kind of, when I think back, it's one of the feedbacks I've sometimes got off people, that that's my superpowers, and I've sort of forgotten it until just now.
Yeah, and so imagine if you like structured your life and business around that. Like, what conferences would you be going to? What books would you be reading? How would you like create time to have those, like to have the input, to push into new areas, right? For example, what kind of clients or client problems would you most use that in, right? Perhaps there are certain, might be some kind of creativity brainstorming sessions, or, there might be certain things where that is particularly valuable.
Yeah, that really resonates. That kind of excites me as well, the way that you're putting it.
Well, yeah, I think when we find the thing, it makes us go, oh my God, this is what it is. So for my client who was sitting by the pool, he realized, I came with a phrase for him, because it's hard for someone to see it yourself. We talked about it. It was something like, I think it was like inspiring others. It's like personal credibility and inspiring others with personal credibility and the vision. Because he's this like Olympic athlete. He's just got this aura of making things happen. And he's really good at casting a vision and explaining what it is and how it's all going to work. And he brings his energy. And so he just realizes, like, if I just find those key moments where I bring that to the table, I don't need to have many of those moments to have a breakthrough. So that's some deep work, but when we get there, it's amazing. So the insight is, if you take the 80-20 rule, 80% of our results and 20% of our effort, and we apply that to itself, right? You find that 4% of our effort creates about 64% of our results, and 1% of our effort is about 50% of our results. I know it sounds like a bit mathematical and everything, but like, actually, the reality is true. Probably if you look back at those key moments that made the biggest difference in your last year, it came from like 1% of your time, or 1% of your relationships, or whatever. Now, sometimes it can be hard to predict which of those are going to be. But if we can really double down on those things where we're in our genius zone, it does create a huge shift. But the last thing I said, we're too focused and we're not focused enough. So we need to be more focused on that genius zone, right? On that 1%. And we need to create time for serendipity. We need to create time for those random connections, for exploring, for not just being laser focused. Have you seen that YouTube video with the basketball being passed around across a basketball team? And there's a gorilla that walks right through the mix. And most people are so busy being told what they've been told to do, which is counting the basketballs being passed, that they don't see the gorilla. The gorilla literally stops and waves at the camera and walks off, but you're not looking at it because you've been told to count the number of passes. And that's something we get so focused. It's when I talk, sometimes people say, oh, Richard, I can't take a day out to come to whatever your executive retreat or whatever, because I've got so many things going on right now. I'm focused. I get to be focused, but we need this 10% for, surprising new relationships, surprising new ideas, thinking about things differently, shifting. So this is some of the importance of being less focused as well. And there's somebody who does a lot of work with high-level entrepreneurs as well. And they were saying, yeah, they've really noticed there's two levels of people. There's the focused lot, and then the really successful people are the ones who are actually happy to go out and play around a golf, or go fishing, or just like hang out and chat about seemingly random things. And the question I was asking, well, is that because they're already successful, they don't need to do it? But no, the answer is that was actually how they became successful, by being a little bit focused and a little bit more open. Looking at the time, yeah. So the next one, I think the third one I'll deal with is very simply this idea of if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And that comes back to, I guess, this idea of being focused and less focused. there was a woman who was in my CEO program, Rivendell, a year ago. And her conclusion really was, you know what? This is the place where I'm forced to think bigger than I normally get to think, even though she was CEO, and I get to go deeper in what really matters than I normally go. And it's this kind of stretch, I think, that is a source of exponential growth in who we are. In fact, during that time in Rivendell, she moved from being the kind of regional CEO of the US to being the global CEO of the business. And what I've seen for myself is I'm part of a community of coaches and consultants, and is being part of that community where everybody else, but I walked in the first time and I was like, oh my God, how could I be in this room? Like, all these people are way ahead of me. They're doing things that I want to dream of. What was actually going on is they were thinking the same about me. And so when you're in a room, when everybody feels a little bit on it, not on edge, but like a little bit intimidated in a good way by everybody else, when you don't feel I'm the smartest person, I'm the most experienced person, I'm the most senior person, and all these people are playing a big game, they're doing exciting things in the world, that's where we kind of level up, because we see what's possible. They're just like me. Why I could be doing this? I think I 10 times my rates over the last 4 years because with a group of people who are playing a bigger game, making bigger things happen, engaging with a different level of clients. I talked about my personal story, right? About going from being smart to funny to inspirational to caring, and building those things into who I was. All that stuff has come from being with a group of people who were not content just to be brains on legs, but wanting to integrate their body and their emotions and everything else into the journey. So I turned up thinking it was going to be just strategy, but I ended up getting a deep personal shift. So my question for you is, what are your exponential environments, right? What are the places where you're being lifted up, where you get to rub shoulders with people who are way ahead of you in some areas? It's really hard, especially when we're CEO or founder. You know, we might be part of like a peer group of people kind of perhaps the same kind of level of us in the business, or local, you know, other local people, whatever. This is great, you know, there's a lot of value in that. But where's the kind of the exponential environments where you're actually with people who are really inspiring to you? I think that's my third point, right? What are the exponential environments that we're putting ourselves in? Okay, I'm going to just share a couple of slides. I want to kind of put this together. Okay. So I want to talk about the X quadrant. What is the X quadrant? Well, the secret answer is I keep changing what it means, but I think this is what it means. So it's what, you know, it's the name of my business, but that we have a choice about pursuing this kind of exponential strategic thinking, breakthrough goals, versus being a bit dispersed and sticking with the incremental. So is that question of the strategy? So that, if you like, that's the kind of the x-axis on this diagram. A choice of being strategic, where we put our time on those high return breakthrough activities, or kind of getting lost in the weeds. But there's also another dimension, which is we've been talking a lot about today. And I'm calling it, are you magnetic? So, or are you a bit disconnected? So disconnected means kind of a bit disconnected from yourself, your purpose, your body, your emotions. Perhaps being driven by fear and some of these things. And then magnetic, I think, is when we become magnetic as leaders. It's when we really inspire them, right? We inspire people. Doesn't always, we inspire them, we challenge them, we're on a mission. See, we have that groundedness that people feel in who we are, what we stand for, where we're going, and they want to follow us. And they want to come on the journey, and they want to give the extra. So if you look at how this plays out, like any good consultant, we can fill in the quadrants, right? If you've kind of disconnected, you're kind of just in your head and just doing what you think needs to be done and just trying to stay above the water, and you're dispersed, you're kind of a slave to the grind, right? It's probably not going to be that fun. You just kind of keeping going. Same old. If you're highly strategic and you're a master at thinking exponentially and putting your focus on key goals and everything else, it's great, right? You can kind of make big projects happen. But it's probably a lot of hard work. People are probably doing what they're told because that's their job, rather than following you as a leader. And you might not even be sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Are you really excited about this anyway? You're a bit disconnected from others and disconnected from yourself. What do you really want? So you can be kind of perhaps financially successful in that. But at some point, you're not going to want to go exponential. Exponential impact, because it just doesn't feel quite aligned with who you are. Then I think you have the frustrated visionary. It means though, you actually, you know what you're about. You're on a mission. You inspire people about what you want to be up to, but actually it's not happening. You're perhaps getting caught up by the day-to-day, by the way it's always been, by the urgent, and you're not strategic enough. So you're kind of frustrated because you're not getting the progress that you want. And then I put it to you that when we combine those things, magnetic and strategic, that's where we start to do the things that matter, that move the needle, that inspire us, that inspire the people around us. The people feel feel where we're coming from. They feel the force of our person, right? Of what we are as leaders. And I think when we do that, then we are going to be making some, it will be a force for good, because when we've really connected with who we are, we want to do something good in the world, right? And so when that comes out and people see that, the driver, which might be very different for all of us, but when they see what it is that we're trying to do, what impact we're trying to make, then I think that is that's what exponential success, exponential impact looks like. So there's the intellectual and strategic and the attention and putting our attention on what matters, making time for strategy and everything else. And then also the magnetic, who we're being. So just going to pause there. I'm kind of curious. Which of these two dimensions would you like to, do you feel you most want, would be the most of a game changer for you? Which of these dimensions would be the most, because we can always move up further to the top right. We can always be more strategic and we can always be more magnetic. So which comes to mind right now? Which do you feel is your edge? Which would be the edgiest, perhaps the biggest impact? Perhaps type it into the chat. I'd love to just get a sense of what you think. Yeah, Mosin. Yeah, magnetic. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's a great insight. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this idea about strategic, it's like we just get formed, right? It's like this that's the conversation, is strategy. We can be more strategic, and it gets us a long way. It gets us a hell of a long way being strategic, right? And I found myself that when leadership is that one conversation at a time, it's like you might have done all the strategic stuff. You're in front of the right person, or you've got the team person in front of you, or you're in front of the president of the USA, or whatever it is. That's the key moment. Are we going to be that person in that conversation that moves them along? So thank you for being a bit open with this and honest. it's been a journey I think that I've been on. I for years, I was, I think, stuck in my head. And over the last few years, I've really started to drop back into my body. Again, I've got more to do as well on this journey. But I realized that when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I think I had the hammer of being the strategy. I was a strategy consultant, right? That was my hammer. Everything looked like a nail. But then when I share my heart, my failures, when I screw up, who I am, what makes me tick, what I'm about, it does make a difference. Okay, so I want to share a couple of practical options as well at this point, very briefly. Is that sharing? You see the screens again? Is that coming back up? Yep. Okay, great. So I wanted just to offer a couple of special things for people on this call, if these would be useful for you in your current role. So the first thing is, if you want to become more strategic and free up time, then there's really, you might know I wrote a book on the subject, Making Time for Strategy. I built an online course. You can go through it in about 2 hours. It's like a step-by-step, like no nonsense. Just let's take your diary and make it more, sharpen it up, make it more strategic. It's just a couple of, 300 euros. And I thought, because people are here, they're on a mission. If you want to use that code in the checkout form, the code GOOD this week, then happy to knock 100 off that, just as a thank you for being here. Right. If you want to be more strategic and magnetic, then Impact Accelerator. It's my group program. Anybody from you can be a couple of layers below the C-suite or in the C-suite, or you can be CEO. I won't go through Impact Accelerator in more detail right now, but it's a 6-month program. And what it's designed to do is 2 things. First of all, get really good at the one thing which is going to make the biggest difference in your current role. So we do a 360. We actually find out what stakeholders feel is missing, like how you could do a better job in your current role. You also get clear on your own vision. And we draw a Venn diagram, and what the thing is in the middle, the thing that matters to you and matters to others, will actually help you build that in a measurable way. We interview stakeholders, we measure it, so you actually get a game you can win. And we work on the magnetism part at the same time, because we work on shifting the identity underlying your behaviors. Because let's say you realize you need to be bolder in communicating your ideas at at some level in the organization. Well, that's a magnetism question, and that's an identity question as much as it is a skills question. So if you're interested in checking that program out, there's the link. If you've been on this, if you've got this recording, then you can remind me about that at the right time, and I'll knock something off, 10% off. And then the last option I wanted to mention, which will only be relevant perhaps for a couple of you, but I wanted to mention it, is Rivendell. So Rivendell is my exponential environment, right? It's the vehicle through which I want to pursue at some scale my mission to help the world's top leaders be a force for good. We're going to start a new cohort just in the middle of October. We have a retreat coming in Reykjavik in November. So let me spend perhaps just 1 minute telling you what that is. It might be for you, might be somebody that you know, right, who wants to do this. But if you're interested in any of these, by the way, you can just go to the speak link there, exponential.com/speak, and we can have a chat about it. No pressure. So what is Rivendell? It's a mix of deep personal coaching, a high-level CEO kind of community, and a strategic incubator for your next innovations. So we focus on these 3 areas: exponential strategic thinking, intimate support from your peers. We go really deep, really fast. I'm really, really proud of how we've done that. And deep personal transformation to become that magnetic leader we've been talking about. Again, I really carefully curate the people. I don't just accept anybody. The people we've got people ranging from people running $2 billion companies, entrepreneurs who have built 100 million businesses from zero, people who are running smaller businesses but have really got something special about them. They're all really fascinating people, and they all inspire each other, which is the key point. What do we do? So my goal with Rivendell is to make it that top 1% of your time that is going to create the catalyst for everything else. So we do 2 intensives each year. They're basically 2 days long. Did the last one just in Paris. We're doing the next one in Reykjavik. We'll move them around. We do coaching calls each month with the group. Sometimes we're strategizing. Sometimes we're doing on personal leadership. But it's always with this goal of what's the exponential impact you want to make in the world and what's your legacy. And then we do ad hoc strategy sessions. If something comes up, we realize that there's a need, we'll make extra time for that. The goal is I don't want to fill people's diaries with fluff. I want them to have high value activities, high value use of time that actually moves the needle for them. And then, yeah, who's it fit for? Well, if you're a CEO who's got a track record of success, or you've run a business, and you want to be a force for good, you want to multiply your impact, you want to have a legacy, you want to work on these 2 dimensions, and you want to have fun at the same time, which is a key part of being magnetic, I think. And you realize that the business transformation won't come unless you work on yourself. Now, I think that's really the kind of people that we're interested in. And so if any of those 3 things are relevant for you, feel free to get in touch. If they're not, that's completely fine too. I hope you found this session useful and valuable. I'm going to just come off screen share.